I'm Mila, 27, standing beneath the glimmering chandeliers of my father's anniversary gala, clutching a portfolio that felt heavier than its $45,000 appraisal. Inside was my heart on paper, a charcoal sketch I had refined over weeks. A piece meant for him. Happy anniversary. Dad, I said, holding it out, expecting some flicker of pride. Instead, Madison, my sister, swirled her champagne and laughed. Loud. Cruel. The kind of laughter that echoed in the ballroom, making board members glance over. Cute, Mila. Is that from an adult coloring book? Maybe we can hang it in the staff restroom. Dad chuckled nervously, as if humor could smooth over the sting. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just slipped the portfolio back into my case, retrieved my $45,000 and walked away. The elevator doors closed behind me, sealing their laughter away like a trap. Silence followed, thick and charged, the kind that presses against your chest before a storm. The floor numbers ticked down from 30, 29, 28. Austin stood beside me, loosening his tie. He didn't need to speak. He knew. He knew what I had carried in that portfolio. The charcoal sketch was no mere drawing. It was study number 4 of my upcoming Ecliptic series, which was set to headline a major contemporary auction next month with a starting bid of $45,000. You okay? He asked quietly as the doors opened to the lobby. I'm not sad, I said, stepping into the cool Chicago night. I'm calculating. We didn't head home. Instead, we drove straight to my studio in the warehouse district. As I turned the heavy steel door handle, the atmosphere shifted. The penthouse had smelled like sterile lilies and overpriced perfume. Here, the scent of turpentine, linseed oil, and stale coffee hung in the air. It smelled like work. It smelled like honesty. I walked past canvases draped in drop cloths and sat at my desk. The glow of my laptop illuminated the dust motes floating in the dim light. You're going to do it, aren't you? Austin asked from the doorframe. I navigated to a folder labeled Family. Inside was a single PDF, a licensing agreement. I had spent weeks drafting with my intellectual property lawyer. My father's company, Really Enterprises, was struggling to modernize. Madison had been scheming for months to use artwork by the elusive artist Vesper in their new marketing materials. They had no idea Vesper and Mila were one and the same. This file was my gift, a surprise. A free perpetual license to use my artwork, saving them nearly $200,000 in licensing fees. I stared at the file, Really PDF. I thought of the hours spent painting in the basement, terrified of making a sound while Madison conducted her calls upstairs, of Mom sighing and telling guests. I was finding myself as if my own life were a misstep. They weren't rejecting just tonight's sketch. They were rejecting my years of hard work. I whispered. Fine. I'll show them how a professional handles a bad investment. I dragged the file to the trash bin and emptied it permanently. Delete, I said. Austin's voice was hesitant. Irretrievably. Yes. Then I opened my contacts. Richard, Cynthia, Madison. One by one, I blocked them. Not out of spite, but necessity. I had an auction to prepare for, and I couldn't afford distractions from people who couldn't recognize my value. Seeing their names vanish from my phone felt like both amputation and liberation. People often ask why I tolerated their constant belittling, why I attended the dinners, the galas, the birthday parties. In the Raley household, money wasn't just currency. It was love, attention, worth. By that measure, I had been bankrupt before I even began. I remembered Madison at college, scraping by with C's while partying half the week. Mom and Dad bought her the best laptops, tutors, and networking trips abroad. That was investing in the future. Meanwhile, I had earned a partial scholarship in fine arts. When I needed materials, I scavenged, used brushes from estate sales, painted on reclaimed plywood. My struggle was invisible to them. They didn't see resilience. They saw desperation. And somehow they liked it. It took me years to understand their cruelty. For a long time, I thought they hated me. But hate requires energy. This was subtler. They needed me. They needed a failure to make their own mediocrity shine brighter. Every sigh, every $50 grocery gift, every eye roll at my paint-stained jeans, these were their dopamine hits. They were benevolent only because it made them feel superior. That's why Vesper existed. I created her 5 years ago after my first solo gallery opening in a basement in Wicker Park. I had invited my family 3 months in advance, reminded them weekly. They didn't show. They had celebrated Madison's Employee of the Month award instead. That night, Mila, the daughter, died. Vesper, the artist, was born. A name they would never think to search for. A life hidden in plain sight, protecting my joy from their dismissive gaze. Tonight, the pity ran out. The ecliptic series leaned against the walls of the studio, dark and luminous, humming with potential. These canvases were worth more than their penthouse, more than their approval. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Madison's messages, trying to provoke old emotions, went unanswered. Then Austin, standing with a satisfied smirk, held up his tablet. Check this. On Instagram, Madison had posted a video of my sketch mocking it. But Austin's verified comment changed everything. Provenance. Original charcoal study by Vesper. Estimated auction value, $45,000. Handle with care. The studio filled with a quiet tension. In 3 minutes, Madison would discover the truth. Vesper was me. And that was the calm before the storm. I picked up my phone. Madison was calling. I answered on speaker, not saying a word. I simply listened to the tremor in her voice. You liar, she hissed. You manipulative little liar. Hello, Madison, I said, calm. Yes, Madison, I said, my voice steady. I am Vesper. There was a pause. Then her voice surged with disbelief and greed. And that sketch? Worth $45,000? You're telling me that? That was you? Yes, I replied, conservatively. Her reaction didn't follow the pattern I expected. I thought she might gasp in horror or admit a fleeting regret. Instead, she pivoted instantly to entitlement. You've been hiding this from us. All these years letting mom and dad support you while sitting on millions? That's insane. I never asked for their money, Madison, I said calmly. I chose to work for my art, not their approval. You're keeping assets from your own family, she shouted. We are part of this family. That means your success is ours. We invested in you while you painted in the basement. That makes us stakeholders. I visualized her face, flushed and wild, vein throbbing on her forehead, eyes glinting with predatory calculation. So, you want the sketch back? I asked, lowering my voice. The sketch? She snapped, the edge of hysteria cutting through her words. No, I want my share. Sign over the rights for the company branding like you'd planned. And then we'll talk back pay. For everything we've supported you through. She didn't see a sister. She saw a lottery ticket she had forgotten to cash. I kept my tone deliberate, measured. I'm not hiding, Madison. I am protecting myself. You just confirmed why. I hung up before she could respond. Silence returned to the studio, but it wasn't peaceful. It hummed with tension, a charged quiet, like the moment before a sniper takes a shot. Madison wanted chaos, but I was no longer her pawn. I was a business entity now, and they had just threatened my assets. They think this is a family squabble, I said to Austin. They have no idea, he replied. I opened a browser and searched for Sterling & Associates, the most aggressive intellectual property firm in Chicago. Their retainer was $5,000. I paid it immediately without hesitation. 30 minutes later, I was on a video call with a senior partner. My name is Mila Warren, professionally known as Vesper, I began. Really Enterprises is currently using branding materials, logos, website headers, marketing fonts that I created 5 years ago. I granted them no contract, no compensation. I am revoking their license immediately. The lawyer nodded. Do you have proof of authorship? Yes, originals, timestamps, and a full digital catalog. They have no rights. This is legal. I recalled the first time I had designed their company logo at 22, on a laptop that overheated if I ran it for more than an hour. Dad had glanced at it and said, It'll do. Saves us hiring a professional. They had built a brand on free labor, and now they were about to pay the price. Draft a cease and desist, I instructed. They have 48 hours to remove my work from all digital and physical platforms. Miss that deadline, and we pursue retroactive licensing fees at market rates. Understood, the lawyer said. I moved to the storage closet in the studio and pulled out a dusty box labeled Returns. Inside were all the gifts I had tried to give them over the years. Small paintings, sketches, hand-painted scarves, rejected with polite grimaces or abandoned entirely. No room for this clutter, Mom had said last Christmas, returning a small oil painting of the Chicago skyline. I flipped each piece over, signed Vesper. Each painting, each sketch, a testament to their dismissal and my perseverance. "We'll title this collection The Rejected Works," I told the lawyer. "Consign it tomorrow." I wasn't just selling art, I was monetizing rejection. The next morning, the lawyer sent an email flagged urgent. Attached was a document, Project Phoenix, Investor Pitch Deck, confidential. Really, Enterprises wasn't rebranding, they were insolvent. Slide 12 featured study number 4, my discarded sketch, as the face of their new branding. Worse, an appendix contained a contract granting them 10 years of commercial rights to my catalog, signed in my name, but forged on a birthday card. Fraud. Wire fraud. Identity theft. "They bet on your silence," Austin said quietly, pale. "They assumed you wouldn't notice." "I noticed," I replied, "and I'm making them accountable." 2 hours later, my parents stormed into the studio, frantic and wild-eyed. "It's family!" Mom screamed. "Do you want us ruined? Sign this addendum, just backdate it." Standing among my art, I finally saw them clearly. Not powerful, not frightening, small. Their identity had always been borrowed from the credit they held over others. "I cannot sign," I said. "I already submitted the originals to law enforcement." The color drained from Dad's face. 3 days later, Really Enterprises filed for bankruptcy. 6 months after that, I stood in a Chelsea gallery. Study number 4 hung prominently on the wall, a small red dot marking it sold. The proceeds established a scholarship for underprivileged art students in Chicago. As I stepped to the microphone, the room fell silent. "They told me my difference was a defect," I said. "They were wrong. Your difference is your currency. Your rejection is your fuel." I smiled. "My name is Mila," I said, "and I am Vesper." Then I turned to a blank canvas, dipping my brush into gold. A new life, a new chapter, and the power to create on my terms. The gallery was buzzing with anticipation. Collectors, critics, and fellow artists milled around, glasses clinking, murmurs punctuating the air. I moved through them quietly, surveying the crowd. Study number 4 had sold, but the impact of the work went far beyond its price tag. It represented a reclamation, not just of money, but of dignity, identity, and control. Austin stayed close, a reassuring presence. "They'll never understand what they lost," he said quietly. "No," I agreed. "And they don't need to. I've already taken what matters, my voice, my worth, my independence." The exhibition hall was alive with the golden hue of spotlights reflecting off the canvases. Each piece of the ecliptic series seemed to hum with energy, demanding attention. Years of quiet labor, endless nights in the warehouse, countless rejections. They had all led to this moment. I approached the podium. The murmurs quieted, and all eyes turned toward me. I drew a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly with each exhale. "I want to share a story," I began, my voice calm but resonant. "A story about being dismissed, about having your work ignored, your ideas undervalued, but also a story about resilience and reclaiming what's yours." I gestured toward the first piece of the series. This series was born from rejection. Every brushstroke, every shadow, every line reflects the struggle to be seen and the choice to persist despite it. It's a testament that your difference is not a flaw. It's your currency. A murmur of appreciation spread through the crowd, and a few heads nodded in understanding. Collectors examined the pieces, cameras clicked, and the room felt electric. But amidst the applause, my thoughts drifted back to the chaos of the past months. The stolen work, the fraud, the threats. Madison's voice still echoed in my memory, greed and entitlement wrapped around every word. "They thought they could manipulate me," I said to Austin later, standing behind the gallery entrance, watching as guests admired the collection. "They thought silence meant submission. They were wrong, completely wrong." Austin smiled. "You turned their underestimation into your advantage. Classic Vesper." I allowed myself a brief smile, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease. This was what it meant to transform anger and hurt into action. Every calculated step, from blocking the toxic ties, to securing legal counsel, to exposing the fraud, had brought me here. And now I was not only financially secure, but free from the chains of familial manipulation. As the evening continued, I reflected on the journey. My parents and Madison had built their lives on appearances, leveraging others' work to maintain a facade of success. I had been the invisible asset, quietly undervalued, Yet I had nurtured a career and identity hidden in plain sight. And now the world saw Vesper. A young artist approached me cautiously, eyes wide. "Your work? It's incredible," she said. "I never realized even the smallest gestures, the tiniest opportunities could build something so strong." "Thank you," I replied. "Remember, your worth isn't determined by those around you. It's determined by your commitment to your craft, your vision, and your integrity. Protect that at all costs." She nodded, inspired, and walked away, leaving me to my thoughts. I turned to the window, looking out at the city skyline illuminated under the night sky. Chicago had always been my canvas in spirit, even when it felt like the walls were closing in. The city had witnessed my struggles, my silent labor, and my triumphs. The notification buzz on my phone caught my attention. Another bid alert. One of my older works from the rejected collection had sold overnight. I smiled, realizing that every rejection, every dismissive comment, and every returned gift had contributed to this moment. They were no longer liabilities. They were stepping stones. Then I received a message from Sterling & Associates. The cease and desist had been delivered, and the law firm confirmed that Reilly Enterprises had begun purging my work from their platforms. The fraud investigation was underway, and their bankruptcy proceedings ensured that nothing could be leveraged against me in the future. Justice had been served, not with vengeance, but with precision and professionalism. I closed my eyes and let the quiet satisfaction sink in. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was asserting boundaries. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was reclaiming my life, and that made all the difference. Austin nudged me gently. "You ready?" he asked. "For what?" I replied, opening my eyes. "For the next chapter," he said. "Scholarship launch, mentorship programs, expanding your influence. You've fought the battle, now you build the legacy." I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The scholarship in Chicago for underprivileged art students was more than philanthropy. It was a statement. Talent and determination would always have a place, even when family, fortune, or circumstance tried to overshadow it. My experiences, my failures, and my triumphs were now a beacon for others who struggled to be seen. That night, after the gallery closed, I returned to my studio. The canvases of the Ecliptic series loomed in quiet triumph, each one a symbol of endurance and ingenuity. I picked up a fresh canvas, my brush poised, the gold paint glinting under the studio lights. "This is just the beginning," I whispered to myself. Each stroke told a story of resilience, of reclaiming what is rightfully mine. I wasn't just painting anymore. I was constructing a narrative, a life, and a legacy. Every color, every texture, every line carried meaning, and every piece was a testament to the power of perseverance. Mila, the daughter who had once been dismissed, was gone. Vesper, the artist, the strategist, the resilient force, stood in her place. She had turned rejection into fuel, cruelty into opportunity, and invisibility into influence. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. And as the city lights of Chicago shimmered through the windows, reflecting off my canvases, I finally understood. Success wasn't about approval, inheritance, or recognition. Success was autonomy. It was vision realized through unwavering determination. It was the courage to transform silence into strength and dismissal into triumph. I stepped back from the canvas, brush in hand, and allowed the first streak of gold to meet the blank surface. It gleamed brilliantly under the studio lights, a symbol of the life I had earned and the future I would create. A life where my worth was no longer measured by the expectations of others, but by my own standards, my own choices, and my own unwavering commitment to excellence. Tonight I had fully become Vesper,